Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Road rage is a phenomenon so common that it can be hard to imagine moving from place to place without it these days. That applies to just about anyone within range of a vehicle: drivers, passengers, cyclists, joggers, and walkers. That also includes people close enough to roadways, like kids or folks waiting for a bus or sitting at a park bench, to see road rage, which seems more and more prevalent. AAA spokesperson Nick Chabaria says the data supports that feeling. Aggressive driving has only gotten worse in the past 5 years. Aggressive driving includes activities like tailgating, cutting someone off, running red lights, changing lanes without a signal, weaving in and out of traffic, blocking cars trying to pass or change lanes, and speeding in heavy traffic.
And what we've really seen, as a main contributing factor, I think, is speed. We've seen speeds increase. I know if you talk to law enforcement during the pandemic, and the research is kind of still coming out on why that was, because you have to remember, going back to 2020, our roads were relatively empty, especially in the first half of the year and in the first 2 quarters of the year. Not many people were traveling. People were staying home from work. Schools were virtual. People weren't taking trips. But it was during that time when the roads were empty that we saw speeds increasing on the roadways. And unfortunately, even though we had emptier roads in 2020, fatalities in Missouri and nationwide actually increased year over year, which was really surprising to a lot of folks in the traffic safety industry. AAA did a preliminary study on, trying to figure out why that was, why we saw the increase in fatalities when we had less volume on the roads. And what the study found basically is that there were more risky drivers out on the roads during that time. So even though there was less car volume overall, the drivers that were on the roads were more likely to take risks and therefore more likely to end up, in a crash, either hurting themselves or somebody else.
Nick added that it's aggressive driving that often leads to road rage incidents. AAA did a study on road rage 10 years ago, in 2014, and found that nearly 80% of U.S. drivers reported having significant anger, aggression, or road rage behind the wheel at least once in the last year.
What it looked at was certain behaviors, purposefully tailgating, yelling at another driver, honking to show annoyance or anger, making angry gestures, trying to block a vehicle from changing lanes, cutting off other vehicles on purpose, and even getting out of the vehicle to confront another driver. That I think to most drivers seems like it would be, a very aggressive behavior. 4% of the surveyed drivers reported doing that at least once in the last year. And those are really the behaviors, like getting out of a vehicle to confront a driver or purposely bumping or ramming a vehicle. Those are really the aggressions and the behaviors where we see things, really escalate and lead to some, unfortunate situations oftentimes.
Unfortunate situations like the one Imani Wintz, the owner of the Noir Bookshop, experienced on the road.
So about a year ago, I was at a stoplight on Big Bend, and there was a woman in the car next to me, and she had this huge, fluffy dog, and the dog was so cute. And so I had my windows rolled up, and I attempted to take a picture of the dog. And so I didn't get a picture of the dog because the light changed. But the woman saw me, and she yanked the dog by his collar, and she started screaming at me to delete the picture. Now, I had already cleared my camera because I didn't actually get a picture of it. I just got a blur of her yanking the dog. But I just ignored her, and I continued to drive. And she starts pursuing me down the street on Big Bend, full speed, pursuing me down the street until we get all the way to Del Mar. And she stops at the light, tries to cut me off, and she's screaming at me to delete the supposed picture of her dog that never actually happened. And it was bewildering to me because here we are, and she thought that she had the entitlement to pursue someone down the street at top speed to tell them to stop taking pictures of her dog when I was in my car with my window rolled up and it's public. So yeah, that's my story. It was terrifying, and that lady's insane.
Now, whether you're a driver, pedestrian, or cyclist, we want to hear your experience. Share a time when you've either been the victim of road rage or when an incident caused you perhaps to have road rage yourself. Join our conversation by calling us at 314-382-8255. That's 314-382-TALK. Or email us at talk@stlpr.org. And here in studio to discuss road rage and aggressive driving, we have Dr. Helen Friedman, clinical psychologist in St. Louis. Dr. Friedman, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So as we were listening to the audio from several different people, I saw a lot of expressions sort of go across your face. What is it that you were thinking as you were hearing what people were sharing there?
Well, smiling with recognition or widening my eyes in awe, and I can really empathize with that last caller who called in about the woman following her. And road rage is a scary thing, and we know some things that cause it. So they're both environmental and psychological. And environmental would be somebody's running late, there's congested traffic, traffic's moving slowly. However, people who are more prone, now anybody could feel angry behind the wheel, but people who are really prone to road rage have some characteristics in common. One, they usually get in the car angry to begin with, whether it's home stress or work stress. So their resting level of stress is high. Their resting level of anxiety is high. And that's associated with, this is jargon, separation and individuation, which is the major developmental task of adulthood, which means I understand where I end and you begin.
Okay.
So it allows you to be you and others to be others, and doesn't take things personally.
Okay.
So somebody in road rage takes somebody else's actions very personally or makes assumptions and then wants to seek revenge.
Now, is there something in particular, I mean, as you're talking about the separation and individuation, I'm thinking about what Imani Wentz had shared about being in the car with the windows rolled up. So there is a physical distance and there are physical barriers between people. But is there something more about driving in a vehicle that brings out irritation and causes people to respond in the way that she had described?
Absolutely. People with the windows up have a false sense of security and also feel invisible as well as invincible. George Carlin, the comedian, did a skit on people in cars feeling invisible. Now, his skit was on people picking their noses.
I was thinking.
It was not on road rage. But what he was saying was in cars, there's a sense of immunity from the norms of polite society, like you can't see me. And not only that, there's objectification of others. So we see others as just a bobblehead behind a steering wheel, as opposed to someone's mother or somebody's son. And with vehicles, it's more likely to show aggression because it's different than being on a bus. I mean, in one's own car.
Right.
Different than being on a bus, a plane, a tractor. You're more visible. There's other people on a bus or a plane.
Yeah. Now, technology, has led to a decline in in-person interactions. Do you think, Dr. Friedman, that has contributed to sort of a general lack of empathy for others, or like a trust that others have our best interests in mind? And does that extend to the roads?
I think road ragers think negatively to begin with.
Right.
So I don't think that's impacted it. However, along the lines of what you're saying, there really has been a mental health crisis with the pandemic, with reduced contact. So that's created more stress.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's been an adjustment. As you said, for a while, nobody was on the roads.
Right.
But now people are back. So there's more stress.
Right. Something that I would want to sort of get to before we go much further. George Carlin, we lost him quite a long time ago. Cars have been around for a while, but in your experience as a clinical psychologist and just as a human out in the world, does it seem like road rage is something that people experience much more now than they did, 20, 30, 40 years ago?
I'm not sure in actuality, but maybe so. Maybe as cities get more built up and there's more crowdedness, people on the road more. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, everyone in a family didn't have a car, but now they do.
Right.
So there's more vehicles on the road.
Okay. Well, and that gets to something interesting that we heard from a caller. Rachel called in to share her experience with road rage.
It's mainly been from my own husband. And a lot of times, though, it's in response to people and their poor driving. So there are a lot of people that we've encountered on the road who just, they'll cut him off. And that seems to be the thing that really sets him off for some reason. And it's like he feels like he has to get back at them. So he'll do things like start to kind of pull into their lane, drift into their lane, and then he'll get up in front of them and he'll brake check them. And it has caused some really scary road rage incidents where the last one, a man pulled up beside us and he was screaming at us through the window on my side, the passenger's side. And it's gotten to the point where I've definitely told my husband, there's no way I'll ever ride with you again if you continue with this behavior. But from what I've found with him is it's a learned behavior. He observed it with his father, and now he's doing it himself.
Dr. Friedman, you're doing a lot of nodding.
Well, first of all, that's a really good call because we think about the road rager, we think about the victim, but I've had so many partners of road ragers talk to me and tell me how stressful it is. Even if their partner isn't weaving in and out, even if they're not making gestures or remarks, just the swearing. It's stressful for the partner, but also I love what she said about learned behavior. It's really about emotional regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And some people learn it from their parents, learn to regulate their emotions, but some people learn not to from their parents.
And that as a parent, and as I do a lot of driving, when my son is in the car, I will respond, not outwardly, but I am cognizant of his being in the vehicle with me and learning things that I don't want him to pick up. We want to invite you again to this conversation. If you have an incident from your own experience as a driver, whether you're a pedestrian or a cyclist, share it with us. Give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 382-TALK. Or you can email us at talk@stlpr.org. We have David on the line from Florissant. David, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I had an incident this past summer. I live in Florissant, and I was on my way back to my house over Missouri Bottom Road, which is a 2-lane road, and I had 4 or 5 cars behind me. The speed limit there is 40. When I'm on that road, I don't do over 50. So people like to go pretty fast on that stretch. A car passed me. I didn't even know this car was coming up on my left side until he was just alongside my car. I mean, I didn't have time to even look in the mirror to see that this car was trying to pass me. So I couldn't slow down at all. There was oncoming traffic coming toward us. And by the time I even saw this car, he cut in front of me, missing my car by inches and missing this oncoming car by a matter of feet.
Mm-hmm.
I was totally astounded that a driver would jeopardize their own life along with other people just to get ahead of someone to save a matter of seconds, maybe. This was
right.
Unbelievable.
And so I can just imagine all of the emotions. David, thank you for sharing that. All of the emotions that he must have felt in that moment. I mean, does this resonate insofar as what you have heard, Dr. Friedman?
Yes, and it goes along with what Nick from AAA was saying, that road ragers are risk takers. They do things, they go 10 or 20 miles per hour over the speed limit. They rapidly switch lanes. They tailgate. They enter intersections during a red light. It just fits that.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a very quick break here, but we'll be back shortly to continue this conversation and to take your calls about road rage. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.
Let's return to our conversation about what drives road rage and how it might be curbed with Dr. Friedman, Dr. Helen Friedman, a clinical psychologist in St. Louis. Now, one of the things we did not get to before the break has to do with conditions that not only exist here in Missouri, but it is something to be thinking about, and that has to do with firearms. So, Every Town for Gun Safety released a report in March that found that the number of road rage injuries and deaths involving guns has increased every year since 2018. They reported that in 2022, every 16 hours, someone was shot, injured, or killed in a road rage incident. Now, Jonathan Lawrence was shot during a road rage incident in St. Louis this past November, and he had just gotten home from work when a car came flying down a one-way street where he lives.
And I hollered, "Slow down." So he stopped, and I said, "There's kids playing on the sidewalk." He said, "I don't give a F about them kids." So I kind of threw my arms up, said, "Okay, let's go." He said, "I don't have any time to fight no white boy," and aimed out of his driver's window and let off 5 rounds.
Jonathan was shot twice in his leg and once in the groin. He says that the third shot came very close to his femoral artery. He was taken by ambulance to a nearby hospital and received trauma surgery on his left tibia. Today, Jonathan says he's able to take a few baby steps without a cane. But he also finds himself reflecting on his actions when the driver sped down the street.
I don't downplay my role in it. I should have de-escalated, and had I chance again, I probably would have tried to de-escalate, because de-escalation is in my job. I try to de-escalate tense situations all the time, and had I tried a little harder to try to diffuse that, I probably wouldn't be in this situation I am today. A saying that helped me out a lot growing up is seek first to understand and then to be understood. So maybe we need to just start, giving each other a little slack on the roads and stuff.
So Dr. Friedman, clearly Jonathan has had a very unique experience with road rage and what can happen. And he's reflected too. What was it that stood out about what he shared?
There were several things. One is people who do road rage tend to be more impulsive. So guns and impulsivity do not mix. He raised a good point about you want to de-escalate because we don't know what another person is going to do. And also when he said seek to understand, that speaks to not making assumptions about other people. However, in high adrenaline situations, it's hard to slow down and do that.
Mm-hmm. We have Therese on the line from Baldwin. Therese, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you. Yes, I had an experience at the post office when they had the after-hours drive-through, and I was preparing an envelope to pop in the mailbox, and a big red truck pulled up behind me. The man rolled down his window and said, "Get out of the way. You're in the way." And the look on his face terrified me. I was afraid that he might have a gun. I'm over 65. My reactions aren't that quick. I wasn't able to pull away in time to make him happy, and he sped off screaming at me. And this is a sort of one of many incidents where I haven't driven as quickly as the person behind me wants me to, even if I'm going the speed limit, and they'll honk and pass me and yell. I'm wondering, what is it that makes people so impatient that they have to yell at somebody with gray hair?
Therese, thank you for calling.
Well, once again, I think it's making assumptions about people. You're not going as fast as I would like you to go, as opposed to maybe that person can't go any faster. So it's people who road rage tend to think negatively and aggressively about others in general. You ever hear the term cruising for a bruising?
Right.
These people often have a chip on their shoulder, and so they're easily aggravated.
Mm-hmm. We also have Mike, who's calling from Greenville, Illinois. Mike, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a cyclist, and some of the roads that I ride on are two-lane roads with no shoulders, and I wear bright yellow clothes so people can see me. I have a helmet on with a tail light. I got a tail light on my bicycle, a mirror on my helmet so I can see traffic behind me. I don't wear earphones. But inevitably, what I see a lot of times is I will see oncoming traffic, and sometimes that oncoming traffic is quite doing things that you wouldn't expect to be normal, like running off the road, like they're being forced off the road. When I see this, and I do see it frequently, I'll look at my mirror, and there's another car trying to pass me on a two-lane road with oncoming traffic, and inevitably it happens when all three of us come together.
Mm-hmm.
It puts me in a very dangerous situation. It definitely puts the person in the oncoming car in a very dangerous position, and I get aggravated with it, because there's no concern for the safety of the cyclist or the oncoming traffic.
Right. Mike, thank you for calling. We also have Sue, who has a similar comment. Sue, calling from St. Louis. Welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Yes, I agree with the cyclist. I'm also a cyclist, but I'm also more of a pedestrian. I live in the city. We walk a lot. And what I have found is there's no regard for pedestrians because you're in a car, you're more powerful. You'll have the walk sign, you'll be in the crosswalk, and people will just honk at you to like you're in the way. And I really think people would run you down and not think twice about it. I've read about that in the paper. One lady ran a man down with a walker. She backed up, said sorry, and went on.
Right.
And I think part of it is the law enforcement. There just aren't enough police enforcing laws, and people just get by with it. So you really have to have your head on a swivel.
Right. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We also, Sue, thank you. We also have Jennifer, who's calling from Bourbon. Jennifer, welcome to St. Louis on the Air. What is your comment?
Hi. Well, I live in Bourbon. I worked in Fenton and made that 60-mile commute every day. I carpooled. The mornings were not too bad, but the afternoons, on Highway 44, it was 70, 75 miles an hour, bumper to bumper, all the way out to the Washington exit is when we lost traffic. The worst part was the Eureka exit, getting off there. So many people go in there to go to Wildwood and wherever they're going. They're in the left lane, the third left lane, going 70 miles an hour and swerve over real fast to get to the exit.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they know a mile beforehand that they had to get off of that exit? Why couldn't they make it over before the road, beforehand?
Jennifer, yes, I have definitely seen that happen, and not being alone in the car also adds another dimension of danger and hazard. Thank you so much for calling with that. We also got an email from David. David says, my wife and I have noticed that aggressive and self-centered driving seems to be of epidemic proportions in the last few years, but we were chalking it up to us having arrived at being senior citizens. I have three principles when I am driving. One is everyone on the road is an idiot except for me. Number 2 is don't be too sure about yourself. And 3, the law of physics trumps all other laws. David says he reminds himself constantly that you don't have to pass an intelligence test to get a driver's license, and that nobody needs to pass a basic courtesy test to get the same. Everyone on the road an idiot except for me, and not being too sure of yourself. Maybe they contradict, but in total, what we've heard from our callers and from David who emailed, what is it that is coming across for you?
So I agree with David about defensive driving, that it behooves each one of us to do that. The other thing that stands out is kindness. Kindness, whether you're the driver, whether you're the pedestrian. I've needed to make a right turn and somebody who's young and able-bodied is just walking really slowly. It's like if I'm cutting across the street, I dart so that cars could get by. But it's so that everyone just show the other party some kindness.
Right.
But easier said than done.
Right.
You might be able to do it. I might be able to do it, although maybe not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody who is in this kind of impulsive, there's also some research that says people who do road rage tend to misuse alcohol and drugs. There's a whole bunch of things, a host of things that hang together that make them more impulsive.
Mm-hmm. To sort of end on a note that is a little more practical and optimistic, AAA spokesperson Nick Chabaria advises that everyone drive on the defensive, as you just mentioned, and to sometimes just let things go.
Rule-following, law-abiding drivers, people maybe don't like to see other drivers breaking the law, running red lights, speeding, weaving in and out of traffic. Unfortunately, it's not our jobs to police that, and it's not our position to try to deter that driver from breaking those laws or from driving recklessly. It's best to just let them go. If they're really putting people in danger, you can call police and let them know what direction that vehicle is going and a description of that vehicle. Some other practical tips, even, don't make eye contact. If somebody pulls up beside you and they're angry, just ignoring them, will oftentimes diffuse the situation. Of course, never make any obscene gestures. That always escalates things. And then again, if you need to, if you feel you're really in danger as a driver, or if you think other drivers are in danger, call 911 with a vehicle description and direction of travel.
So, Dr. Friedman, coping strategies, are there maybe one or two very practical things that we can do to avoid sort of succumbing to anger that may arise as we're driving or encountering people who are not very courteous drivers?
Yes. So first, don't set yourself up for anger by running late. Allow enough time to get where you're going. Mm-hmm. Watch what you tell yourself about a situation. So don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Learn different ways to relax yourselves. Turn on some good music. But often people tell themselves horrible things and rile themselves up, and anger begets anger.
Mm-hmm. So it almost sounds like, to take it all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, talking yourself down before you even step into the car or turn on the ignition sounds like something that would also be beneficial.
Right. Be aware of how you're feeling when you get in the car, and then allow enough time so you're not stressed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for coming in to talk with us. Dr. Helen Friedman is a clinical psychologist here in St. Louis.
This episode was produced by Emily Woodbury.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.